Hello again folks, and welcome back to my channel. I'm the Lone Adventurer and you're joining me today playing through a new game that's coming to Kickstarter soon called A Wayfarer's Tale. And this is going to be a print and play game, so if you back it on Kickstarter you will get the files super quickly. Yeah, I have already done a sort of an overview video. I've already done a playthrough video which you can watch by clicking the link up there or in the description down below. And in this video we're just going to get straight into a playthrough. And let me emphasize again that this is a solo playthrough using the solo rules. No doubt another video will pop up somewhere else of the game being played using the standard multiplayer rules. But this is going to be a solo game, and one of the things I like about A Wayfarer's Tale is that it comes with dedicated solo rules in the rulebook and a nice solo play sheet. Now this is the low ink black and white version, but there is a lovely colour version included in the Kickstarter. What have we got here? We have got a series of, how many scenarios? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 scenarios. And they happen across each of the 4 maps. Now I've already done scenario 1 and 2. I've done Journey Begins and I've done Greedy Wayfarer, and they happen on map number 1. Today we're going to be playing through scenario number 3, which is called New Horizons. This is played on map number 2, and the objective of this scenario is to reach all of the towns on the map. You start each scenario with a number of the monster boxes crossed off, and also at the end of the scenario we have a amount that we have to subtract from our final score. And remember, we're aiming to get a positive score. So at the end of this scenario we're going to be subtracting 50 points, which sounds a little scary, but I guess they've played through this and they've done this to balance it out. In the first scenario I subtracted 30 points. Second scenario I subtracted 40 points. First scenario I had a score of 23 and I was feeling pretty pleased with myself. Scenario number 2 I got a score of 5, so not quite so much. I think I probably could have pushed on and got a little bit more, but I was in a position where I could finish the game with a positive score, so I chose to do that. Another feature of the solo game is this market. You have some points to spend on equipment at the start of the game. I believe it's a total of 12. So you could buy the sword and the compass, or the potion and the compass, or just the provisions, or just the magic cloud. And you can see at the moment I've got 4 of these, because after each scenario you get to spend up to your score on additional items. Now when you use these items, when you buy these items, you do a little cross in the box, and then when you use them you rub that out. So they're one-use items, and then obviously you'll be free to repurchase them at the end of the next scenario you complete. Now I've never actually used any of these so far, but they're there if I need them, and I've got a feeling that maybe today will be the day and I'll need to use one of those. So there we go. And finally along here we've got a little final score tally, and it will sort of tell you how well you've done at the end of all 8 scenarios. So there you go, that's my solo sheet. We're going to use that to do a little bit of setup. Okay, so before we start we need to cross off a certain number of monster boxes, and we're only going to be crossing off 6 in this one. So I'm going to cross off 6 of these boxes, like so. And remember, if we fill in all these boxes, then the scenario is over, whether we have won or not. If we miss-roll and we cannot use our roll 3 times, the scenario is over. And if I get myself to a point where I cannot reach one of the towns because of the way I've done my routes, then the scenario is over. So with that done, we need to roll a dice to find out what our starting city is going to be, our starting town. So let's have a look. 3. So that means our starting town is going to be this one here. We would start here on a roll of 1 or a 2, here on a 5 or a 6, but here on a 3 or a 4. I'm just going to do a little dot in the middle to remind me. It's worth pointing out that I have been using this sheet for every game that I play and then rubbing out the numbers, but I'm going to do it in pen today to make it a little bit easier for you to see on the video. So this is the last time I'll be using this sheet, the only time I'll be using this sheet, but then after this I think I am going to laminate a couple of sheets so that I can carry on playing without wasting too much paper. Right, with that said, I think we probably need to make a start. So we are here. Let's have a little look at the map. What have we got going on? Well, we've got a tavern quite close by. We've got a town over here that we need to get to. And then we've got some towns that are really quite far away. So what I've found to be a good tactic in this game is to have lots of routes going on at once. At the moment we're in this town here, and we could theoretically have 6 routes coming out into each of the surrounding hexes. And you want to join up to a couple of new towns quite quickly, because then you can have more routes going out from that town. And I find that the more routes that you've got going on, useful routes that are helping you achieve your goals, then the more options you've got and the less restricted you are. So if you focus on one route and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, if I don't roll one of these locations, or if you're like here, then you have to roll something that will get you into a mountain space or a desert space. Otherwise there's nothing you can do. So if you have lots of routes going on, then that can be handy. I need to stop waffling and actually get into the game, don't I? Right, so if you remember, we roll 3 dice, and wherever possible we're going to be using the blue dice. So we've got a total of 9 here. So let's have a look. I don't want to use the coachman because you want to start off with a nice low score on the coachman, because each one has to be greater than or equal to the previous one. You've got to have doubles to use the sailor, plus I'm not near any water at the moment. It tends to be that if you can't use one of the other ones, the merchant is a good fallback. So almost always you can use the merchant. Don't want to do the adventurer because you want to start again low, because it's got to get increasingly large as you get up the mountain. So really my options are the guide or the merchant. So the merchant allows you to move into desert and grassland, and the guide allows you to move into jungle and desert. And I've got some grassland here and I've got some desert. So I think I just need to start off a route. Maybe I want to start off a route going sort of up this way, join up with this city here, this town here as soon as possible. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write my number 6789 in this square here. Remember, it's just got to be 5 or greater, and that's activated my guide, which allows me to travel into a jungle or a desert. And I'm going to go into a desert. So we're going to go from here up here, and hopefully that can be seen easily on the video. And that's it. That is a round. That is a go of Wayfarer's Tale. So I quite like that about it. Not too many stages or things to remember. You roll the dice, you write the number, you move. Let's do it again. 8. So this time we've got 8. Remember, we can always use this dice instead, but if we do that, we have to cross off one of these monster boxes, which brings the end of the game closer and closer. So ideally we want to use an 8. We could do the guide again. And actually that's not a bad idea. I might do that. Yeah, let's keep it simple. Let's use the guide again. So that's an 8. She allows me to move into jungle or desert. And we've actually got a jungle right up here. So very quickly, I'm only 1 square away from getting to this town, which is cool. 7. Now 7s are kind of annoying because 7 is like one of the few numbers you can't use for the merchant, because we've got columns with for 3, 4, 5 and 6 and rows for 8, 9, 10 and 11, but no 7. I can't put it in the guide because the next one has to be a 9 or greater. If I put it in the coachman, I'm setting myself up to always having to roll high numbers for the entirety of the game. Can't use it for the sailor because it's doubles. Could use it for the adventurer. That'd be a 7, and then I'd have to roll an 8, 9, 10 or 11 and 12 as I make my way up the mountain. That's not too bad, but it is setting myself up to have to use some quite high rolls there. Alright, I think I'm going to have to use it on the adventurer. Doesn't feel like a sensible move, but I don't really feel like using any kind of special abilities or anything this early on in the game to re-roll a dice. That doesn't feel good. So, mountains or jungle. Those are my options. And actually, I don't have much in the way of choice. I could go down here, and that's pretty much it. Or I could veer off this way, but a route cannot split. It can only split at a town. So if I went off this way, I'd be committed to carrying on going this way, and I'd have to ignore this town. But maybe that's not the end of the world, because I can always come up here and go to this town. Alright, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go up into this jungle here. Okay. So we're no longer aiming for this town. I guess it's going up that way, or aiming for this town. All of a sudden I don't really like my decision. But I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it. 8. Rolling a lot of 6s, 7s and 8s and 9s. Right, but at least with an 8 we can use the merchant. Merchant allows me to go into desert or plains. Whoa, maybe I should have gone up there. Now I've got to get down around this huge crevasse here. But I've also got to get over into this town here. There's lots to do. Lots to do. I think I'm just going to send a route off that way. 9 again. I could do the guide. Jungle or desert. Do you want to go any jungle or desert? I could go over here as I head down there. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so 6, 7, 8, 9. Now notice, because I've written a number in a box linked to a treasure, that means I have scored that treasure. So I've got 9 points now towards my total at the end of the game. But remember, that's going to have 50 points subtracted from it. So at the moment, what am I at? Minus 41 points. So I've got a long way to go. Alright, so we need to draw a route up into that jungle. 7 again. Brutally repetitious. I just forgot. You're supposed to mark off the first town that you start in here. And you can use this symbol as well. So I haven't talked about how you can use these use the towns that you have already located to do things. But basically you would cross these off. So at the moment I've got 2 available to me. This one that you start with. So really you always start with 2. And you can use those to change the dice in different ways. But I'm trying to hold off doing that in an ideal world. 7. Where am I going to put that? See, once again, you can't put a 7 on a merchant, on the merchant. So I think I am going to use one of my little town symbols here. I'm going to use this first one, cross that off, and I'm going to use that to change the value of one of my dice by 1. So I'm going to increase this from a 3 to a 4. And this dice manipulation mechanic is only part of the solo game. You can spend one town to increase or decrease one dice value. You can cross off 2 towns to re-roll all the dice, or you can cross off 1 town before you roll to add an extra dice into your roll. So those can be definitely quite handy, and I've used those quite heavily each time. So now we've got an 8, and we're going to use that 8 to activate the adventurer, I think. That was my plan anyway. So there you go. Remember, each number as you go up the mountain has to be greater than the number before it. Okay, so we've only got 1 town, so we can only go out from this town or on an existing route. And I'm going to go down into these mountains here with an aim to get to this tavern and then carry on up this way. Right, 5, at least it's a different number. We could start off the coachman, although I would prefer a 2, a 3 or a 4. But 5 is okay, because you don't want it to be too low when you get here, because you get points for the crystal. So we could do 5 there. And actually, I think he allows you to go into grassland, and I do want to do that. So I'm going to put 5 there, and then we're going to go up this way, and now we're close to this town here, which is good news. 7, another 7. Okay, a lot of 7s. It's very early on in the game to be writing a 7. I really want a 5 or a 6 there, but you can't use a 7 on the merchant. Now I could do a 2, that's an option, but remember, if I do that I have to cross off a monster. So I'm going to cross off a monster space, and I'm going to use the action dice, the active dice, to do 2 instead of 7. Right, so that was basically a moment of madness because I forgot that I'd already written a 5 in the coachman. So having a 2 really doesn't help me. So I'm not going to do that. I've got to remember now that I haven't actually crossed off that monster space. So we'll see how that works, because I'm very good at forgetting things. So we're back to where we started, which is a 7. So I guess my main option is to use my other town to change the dice value by 1. Then we can change that to a 5, which gives me a total of 6. I could then put the 6 over here. I didn't really have to do that. I could have put a 7 there, but psychologically, for some reason, I didn't like the idea of putting a 7 in the coachman. So there you go, we're putting a 6 there. He allows me to move into mountains or grassland, and we're going to go into... Are you going to go into mountains? Okay, we're going to go into grassland, because at least that means I've completed a town. So we've got this town here, Huzzah. So we've got another town we can spend to do some dice mitigation. Let's push forward. 10, that's more like it, a nice big beefy number. Now really I want to use that on the adventurer, because the next spot is at the top of the mountain, so you want a big number, and it's a gem. So I'd score 10 points. However, do I want to go into mountains or jungle at the moment? I could go into the mountains over here. That's really it. Anywhere else I could use a 10 in a beneficial way? Not really. So let's do that. Use the 10 there. And that's going to get me a crystal with a value of 10. So that's not to be sniffed at. That's alright. And that's going to allow me to move up here into this area that's got a tavern, which means I can now keep this going. I mean, I'm quite a long way off, but I could keep going and use these 3 places here. And I feel like there needs to be a little sort of way of marking that, so that's what I've been doing. I've been doing a little circle and then a tick, and then I know that I've gained access to that area there. 9. Oh, we could go down the mountain. That would be an option. Just looking to see if there's any mountains or jungles. Or maybe I should just do a 9 over here on the merchant. That's what I'm going to do. We'll mark off that one there. Merchant can do grassland or desert. And I think we will go up this way into this grassland. I regret not going to this town. I think that's what I should have done, and that would have helped me open up the map a lot more. So I'm going to try and get to that town as soon as I can. 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to mark off a merchant spot and go up here into this grassland. 6, 7, 8. I'm going to do the same thing again. 8. And then that takes us up into this town here, which is where I wanted to be. And we've located another one of the towns. Only got 8 to go. 6. Well, this is a good opportunity to carry on the coachman. Do I want to go into any mountains or grassland right now? I could carry on going up this way because I've got to get up there somehow. Or I could go down here because at some point I've got to try and get down into this area. So let's do that. 6 there gives me a crystal worth 6, and I'll carry on into this grassland up here. Okay, starting to feel a little bit better now. So this town here, I could only start one route from here, and that would be down here, and that's kind of a dead end. There's nowhere that I really want to go to. This town here, however, I can go up this way, which is nice. I could go over the water up this way, which is quite handy. And indeed, it could go down here to there, theoretically, as well, which I probably will need to do. So that's got quite a lot of options. I do need to start thinking about going down here. I've got to get to this town, and actually from this town here you can go over the water here via this little boat. Lots to do. 5. Not a lot of options for 5. I'll tell you what I could do. I could start going over the water like that somehow. I'm going to spend one of my towns, increase the value of that dice to 3, giving me a total of 6. Remember, the sailor needs to have doubles. So with a double I can activate the sailor, and I can move from this town over into the water. Cool. Alright. Right, keep going. 4. Because the coachman has always got to be a 6 or greater now. Sailor needs doubles. Guide, we need an 11 for the next one, so I need to make sure I use the 11 on the guide so I can open up these lower targets after the 11. I could put a 4 over in the merchant. I don't really want to put it here because that restricts this one, because if I put a 4 here then it has to be a 3 or lower here. So it's got to be the merchant really. So a 4 on the merchant. So across in the 4 column. Notice the only option in the 4 column I've got now is the monster. So we'll have to do the monster if I want to use a 4 on the merchant again. Oh, right, so that allows me to do desert or grassland. Well, maybe I should go over into this desert here. 10. I could just get straight in on the sailor again and sail up into this hex here, which means that I'm quite close to this town, which is quite nice. Another double. But see, the thing is, the next sailor is on a treasure, so I want to make sure I get quite a high double for that one. So I've got 4. So not the sailor, not the guide, not the coachman, not the adventurer. I want something higher than a 4 for him. So it's got to be the merchant, which means I'm going to be crossing off that monster. So I've got to roll a d6 to work out the value of that monster. I've also got to roll a d6 to work out the value of this treasure. Because I've completed that column, I get a treasure. So a monster and a treasure. We'll start with the monster. 6. Well, that sucks. I don't really want a monster that's worth 6, but I don't think there's much I can do about it. Oh, if I had the sword, I could reduce the value to 0. I kind of wish I'd got myself a sword. No, there's nothing I can do about it. So a monster with a value of 6. And then what's my treasure going to be worth? 4. Okay. Okay, could be worse. Could be worse. So the merchant allows me to go to desert or plains. Ah, and this town here is in desert. So there we go. Up into the desert. Gets us another town. Good, good, good. Oh, double 1. 2. That's bad news. There's nowhere I can use that. Well, I could use it on the sailor, but with a crystal with a value of 2, that seems like a tremendous waste. So actually what I'm going to do is use both of my available towns, which feels a bit risky, to re-roll all the dice. What's that? Oh man, that's rubbish. 4. I'm going to have to use that on the sailor. Getting myself a crystal of value 4. I was really hoping that would be a lot bigger than that. Okay, but the sailor allows me to move into some water, so at least I can come down here and hopefully carry on around there. 7. Oh, 7's rubbish as well. Oh well, I could use 7 on the... Actually, that's fine. I can use 7 on the adventurer. Remember, the numbers need to go down as we're going down the mountain. And that will allow me to move... Well, I could move here and get myself a shield. That'd be quite handy. Or I could go here and get a town. And I think that's probably the most sensible move. So I've got myself another town. I've only got 6 to go. All right. I think I should possibly stop there. The video's getting a little bit longer than I anticipated. So I think we'll have a little break and come back in a final video to complete this playthrough. It's going okay. We've got 5 towns and 6 to go. My current score is a lot lower than it needs to be. But looking around here, where am I going to score some points? Hopefully with the merchant. And then I need to push on really with the coachman to get up to these treasures here, and I need to push on with the adventurer to get to these other treasures here. So lots to do. Hope you're enjoying this playthrough. If you are and you want to see more adventures just like it, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. I am the Lone Adventurer. I will see you in the next video for our final playthrough of A Wayfarer's Tale.